What are we going to choose? Are we going to choose the glorified top academy, being at the top club to make it look good, or are we going to be concerned about ourselves as athletes and as ballers and choose, hey, what's going to give me the biggest opportunity? How am I going to get to this first team quicker? I was going through some of the thought processes in my life of just going through West Ham's academy, and I remember being released. And it kind of brought me back to a time where we are right now, where there's loads of you that's going through the same sort of scenario. Some of you have been released, some of you are finding clubs, some of you may have just gone back to pre-season. And a lot has been in the mental process and the mental thoughts of what are we gonna do at this time, right? And the conversation came up of, do you need a top level academy? And then I started to think about that. And then I realized, no, but what if you're good enough? Do you need a top level academy? So the conversation today we're going to kick into is, if you are good enough, do you need a top level academy? Now, my answer is no. And the reason why is because I've gone through the process of when it was me. I got released from West Ham. And I remember sort of that period of time where it's quite like, oh, my career's over. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to go. What pathways are now opened up for me? And I remember having a conversation with my agent at the time. And my agent was kind of like this level-headed guy who was just trying to get me like back focused, make sure my mind was right. And he said to me that, why don't you think about going to League One and League Two clubs? Because there's probably more of an opportunity there right now at this period of time. Because coming from a West Ham, they're a lot more sort of receptive to receiving you. And I'll be honest with you guys, I kind of had the thought process of, you need a top level academy, or you need to be up sort of around the top, like championship and above. So my stubborn self turned around and I said, okay, cool, I want to be championship or above. I don't really want to go League One, League Two. I felt like my talent warranted me being in a championship and above. And as time went on, opportunities slowly dried up. And I started to realize that later on in my life that maybe he was right. And I started to think about the process of how that worked out. And then I thought, but there's other players out there now that's going through that same process, that same thing. I've seen teammates come and go. Now, you guys may not know this, but the amount of players that I've seen, especially going through an academy, and the ones who may be watching this who's been through an academy, I've seen so many players come and go. I'm talking like thousands who have been dubbed as the next this or the next that, or they're quality footballers, like their talent is at a whole nother level, but yet they don't ever make it. There's a stat that says 97% of like players who are in the top flight academies don't play a top flight minute in football. Like, let that register, let that sink in for a second. And I think it's genuinely because of the thought process of, we feel like we need a top level academy. When we think of a top level academy, the first sort of process that you kind of go through, especially like for the ones who's been released or are at clubs right now, the first process you go through is the word discovery, right? You go through discovery, you find some pathways, and then after that, we try to make everything else happen after that. But when it comes to the discovery, I'm lucky. I was one of those guys that was able to be discovered from the age of 8, 9, right? I got scouted by West Ham from the age of those ages. Whereas most of you right now, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, all the way up to maybe about 21, right? You guys may not be as lucky as I was. So the discovery period for you guys is a real thought process. And when you think of that discovery period, you have to ask yourself, what is my situation? Where am I right now? And how am I going to be discovered? So I started to think about, what are those discovery periods for you guys? And these are the things that you need to understand, because I feel like they're overlooked. I've had friends join football colleges. I've had friends literally go to non-league clubs and work their way up through the youth process there. And what's crazy is they're the ones still playing right now than the other ones who actually went through the top flight clubs. So when you think about discovery and you think about all these things, there are players right now that are playing in the Premier League or in the top flight leagues now whose discovery wasn't a top academy. You've got players like Eze, which we've seen tried to go through multiple top level academies and only got his break at QPR. In the grand scheme of things, you wouldn't call a QPR top level academy, but it took him that process to get there, right? And then you've got the Jamie Vardy story, going all the way to non-league and making his way from there and climbing up the ladder. I think there's Burn also, who plays for Newcastle. He's now had that process as well. He was working in a supermarket, right? There are so many other ways of discovery, and there's so many players that have done it in a certain way. And I'm just here to submit to you that right now, don't get disheartened. Don't start feeling at the point right now that the dream is over, because it's not. You don't need a top level academy. You just need to understand how pathways work. So like I said, so when we think about pathways, right, we need to understand that not everybody's going to have the Messi story. Not everybody's going to have the Ronaldo story. Not everybody's going to have that, oh, I've gone through this academy and I'm here. Not everybody may not even have the Eze story. Not everybody may not even have the Jamie Vardy story. But let's just stay on the Jamie Vardy story for a minute, because I think this generation is slowly awakening. I know so much players right now who are understanding the process of non-league. And non-league for me is probably one of the most underrated places, which is a pathway. I've gone through the process of myself being stubborn towards non-league. And when you look at the non-league process, most players, especially if we're talking just UK based alone, most players who are in the Football League right now have probably predominantly done the non-league route. Predominantly have all done it, right? And now the non-league route, what people need to understand about that non-league route is what the most important factor is when it comes to this stuff is first team minutes. Like, you need to understand first team minutes, because a manager isn't going to sign you just because you came from Arsenal, or you came from West Ham, or this one or that one. They're going to sign you based on, number one, your ability. Number two, can this person improve my team? And number three, they're going to look at, but does he even have a little bit of experience and a little bit of minutes to play first team at my club? And unfortunately, when you leave an academy, you don't have that. You don't have that. And we're here trying to climb for an opportunity, trying to find a pathway. But you need to understand that your pathway has no first team minutes to it at this present time. So what is one of the best places to get that? Go find yourself a local non-league team. Multiple people I know that have done that. You do your thing on the pitch. We can't keep sitting here and thinking that we deserve something that we haven't proven, right? There's a thing that I started to realize and go through my mind in the process is we all look at ourselves in the mirror and we say we're this type of player or that type of player, or I deserve this and I deserve that. But the fact of the matter is that's not how life works. Life works by the evidence. There needs to be the evidence of the fruit of your labor, the fruit of your work. What evidence have you got to show? And unfortunately, going to these clubs and saying, I play for Arsenal, or this is where I come from, brother, you're going to have to humble yourself very, very quickly, because they don't care. What they care about is, I have a set of lads here already that I trust, and I'm looking at you to come in and impact this. I don't care where you've been. I'm asking what ability you have, what fruit do you have, what are you bringing into our team? Are you going to be an asset, or are you going to be a liability? Are you going to bring value, or are you just going to bring our team down? Are you coming in with this ego, or are you coming in with this, you're too big for your boots? Or are you going to understand my situation is I've just been released. I need to find a club. I need first team minutes. And non-league clubs are looking for you to go there and be able to get those minutes underneath your belt while adding value to their team. If you are 15, 16, 17, you have just got released just before scholarship ages, or you are at a point where you got released from your scholarship age. Don't snub non-league from there either. Because again, I know people that have done the same route. So just bear that in mind as you start thinking about your pathway, and really understand that non-league, don't snub your nose at it. Don't be stubborn, and really understand that whatever situation you're in, that level might be where you need to start. The next route that I feel like is really, really just overlooked, not looked at, not respected, is lower league academies. Like, I'm talking like academies of clubs that are in League One and League Two. These type of places, right? And the reason why I mention these places is because so many players look at that, and I get it. You have a dream. Your dream is to be able to go to the top. Your dream is to play for these big Premier League clubs. I understand it. That's only going to work for the 1%. And unfortunately, the rest of you who are part of the 99, you may not have that in you yet. And your pathway and your opportunity may be a lower league club. You got to understand, a career in football is a career. Where you start isn't where you finish. Now, look, a lot of you ballers like to look at the top leagues, and here's why. Number one, it's on TV. And you look at that and you think, you kind of get bamboozled because it looks glorified and it looks great. And yeah, you wanna get there. But let's do the math. 11 players can only play on a pitch at one time. A squad 99% of the time is made up of what? 25 players who are signed to be registered to play in that season. And then you've only got a few then after that who are not signed to play in the season or not put down on the list as the players that they can choose from, right? There's 20 clubs in the Premier League. So you do the math on that, right? And you ask me that, is all of you going to be there? No. So you look at that and you got to say to yourself, okay, I may not be able to have a pathway here, but I may be able to have a pathway in a little bit of a lower league. Again, I told you my story. I snubbed it. I said, I ain't doing that. I said, I'm going championship or above. The mindset weren't right with what I was coming with. My agent said the right thing, right? So when you look at these lower league clubs, I'm talking like the Charltons of the world. I know players who have gone through Charlton, gone off and now played in the Joe Gomez is in the Premier League now. We started off at Charlton. Not an academy that people wanted to look at, but he's the one playing, and there's others who started off at the top are not. Right? You look at loads of them that's in there. I'm talking about MK Dons, Milton Keynes. There's so many clubs in this lower league. And when you look at the EFL, there's 72 clubs? There's not 20, there's 72 in the EFL. That includes Championship, League One, League Two. Do the maths on that one. That shows you that there is more than enough in that portion than there is in the Premier League. And when you look at the stats or you look at statistics, go look at some of the players that are playing Premier League right now, the teams that are being promoted up from those leagues upwards. They're the ones that are actually playing, not the ones that have come from Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United. The ones who are actually playing or the ones who are actually making a career out of this thing are the ones that have come from EFL. So why are we looking at the Football League as if it's a problem? Why are we looking at these places as a way to say, and it's because the dream looks so great. But it's not about where you start, it's about where you finish. And you have to understand that process. Don't get bamboozled by the vision. There's still steps towards achieving that vision. And some people's starting point is a lot different than others. You've heard the story of the tortoise or the turtle in the hare? You've heard that story. You know, slow and steady wins the race. Sometimes people go too fast and they miss their opportunity because they're going too fast or they trip over. So like I said, the pathway of a lower league club, if you are, like I said, 15, 16, it's a great place to go. Don't snub it. If you've just been released from a Premier League club, really and quickly get into these lower leagues and make sure you get yourself there, because that's where you're going to get your minutes. You guys need to understand there is a quicker and faster pathway to the first team when you go to a lower league team. So when you start looking at pathways, the first two, especially UK people, you guys who are in England, Scotland, wherever you're from, right around this region, make sure you do not take your eyes off of a potential opportunity in non-league or the lower league clubs. There are many players in this league right now who are making a career, making a life, feeding their families, and somewhat living the dream that they set out to do. So I want to take this conversation a little further. I want to extend it. And this last pathway is something that I've had a conversation about with a load of ex-players, a load of players that I've played with, teammates that I played with, teammates that I played against. And it's the thought process of going abroad. And that thought process of going abroad is a real sort of taboo sort of thing when I was a player. It's a lot easier now that you see a lot of players are slowly doing it more and more. But I feel like it needs to be extended further to players who are in that 15, 16, 17, like that academy phase. Too many players don't look at that as a pathway or an opportunity. And you can go look at the Noni Madueke story. And I want to start there. And the reason why that is something that I want to bring up is because I think this young man had it spot on. And that is why he has his career today. This guy was at Tottenham, right? He was at Tottenham. He got offered a scholarship. And I want you young players to go watch this interview. It's on Sky Sports. It's his first interview that he signed for Chelsea with. And the interviewer asked him the question of, like, why abroad? Like, why did you choose to go PSV? And his answer is something that is it's just a mind-blowing answer to come from someone that young, to come from somebody who's that inexperienced. But it's what's made him break the barriers and made him go to where he is now, right? And he turned around and he said that Tottenham was a great club. That's where he was. He was at Tottenham, got offered a scholarship. And he said the amount of players that he's seen come and go, the amount of players that have been destined to go through the top, the amount of players who you could call quality players of the best, and then they just fall by the wayside. They just go missing completely. You don't hear about them again or you don't see them again. And he turned around and he said, that ain't going to be my story. And that isn't going to be me. And I have to commend him for that. And that sort of process, that sort of mindset is what sparked this conversation. Because I believe there's so many players in the UK who are gifted, who are talented, who are absolute ballers, right? And if you go back to the first episode, I said ballers v footballers, bro. Like, ballers are made for certain leagues. Certain leagues require ballers. And I feel like a league like Holland, where he went for PSV, helped him become a baller. Helped him become a footballer, sorry. But what I also will say, and what I will also add to that, is he got to the first team quicker. He said, I saw the pathway to the first team through PSV quicker than I would have saw the pathway through Tottenham, right? So what are we going to choose? Are we going to choose the glorified top academy, being at the top club to make it look good, or are we going to be concerned about ourselves as athletes and as ballers and choose, hey, what's going to give me the biggest opportunity? How am I going to get to this first team quicker? And now look at Noni Madueke's story. It's kind of it's history at this point. He ended up going PSV, ended up getting his first team minutes, did his thing in Holland, was able to learn, was able to grow, was able to get first team minutes. And now look at him. He's playing for Chelsea. He's one of their main starters at this point. So that shows you that abroad is a real option. There's many players that have done it. Jadon Sancho didn't see the pathway at Manchester City, ends up going Borussia Dortmund, builds a career off it. There's so many players now that you can also look at, though, because I don't want you to get caught up in that if I go abroad, I can get back to the Premier League. No, if you go abroad, it's now a pathway for you to make a career for yourself. Because there's so many that's gone over and that's been able to make a career for themselves. Why are we not looking at these options at younger ages? When you look at the foreign countries, or you look at the players who are from the Brazils, or you look at the players who are from the France, etc., they're willing to do it. They're willing to leave home at 14, 15, 16 to go do what they need to do. I remember watching an interview recently with Matheus Cunha when he signed for Manchester United. He says, I believe that everybody should do everything they can to fulfill their dream. And for some reason, from the UK, I feel like we're just so stubborn to think, okay, maybe my chance just isn't here. And we want to hold on to friends, or we want to hold on to comfortable environments, and we don't want to go forth and achieve our dreams, right? When you look at these European leagues, you got players like Mahrez who came from lower league clubs, Kante who came from abroad and lower league clubs. That's where they got signed to Leicester from, right? So abroad is a real option. And I'm not just talking about if you've made it and then you want to go on loan to abroad from there. I'm talking about why not go there, set up shop, learn the game, build your career from it, and then from there you can come over here. Think about it. Look at Kevin De Bruyne. Started off at Genk. All these a lot of the players that we sit and we recognize and we idolize and we love, they don't come from top level clubs. They come from places where they've grown. Van Dijk is the same. I think he was at FC Groningen in Holland. Now he's the captain of Liverpool, winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. So we have to look at this pathway as something that we can really see as an opportunity to make it in the game. Don't get confused with what it looks like. Really focus on what is. When you start focusing on what is, you start realizing, okay, cool, maybe this me being at Chelsea right now isn't working for me. Okay, I got released and I'm only looking at the UK, and maybe there's something abroad that I can do and go. Start thinking about it. Expand your mind. I know other players that have gone to other countries, Ireland, Scotland, all these other places that they've gone. And then now they've built careers off it. Yeah, they may not have reached the top flight, but guess what? They've made a career from it. And they've been in it for over 10 plus years now. When you look at these European competitions, right? Europa League conference is something that's new. And it's a real entry level, like it's an entry level into European football, the barrier. When you look at the nations that compete in the Europa League conference, it's 29 nations, 29 European nations that compete in that. Imagine you played in one of those leagues. How much times have you seen football teams with names you don't even know how to pronounce? You don't even know how to say. But those players are making a league and a career for themselves. Those players are having a career in football while you guys are sitting there released, worried about your next move because you're too stubborn to go abroad. Like, these are things that you need to start opening your mind to, because for me, I'm passionate about this. Like, it's really on my heart that if a lot of us really turn to abroad, We actually might have careers in football. Go there. Go gain some experience. Remember I said earlier in this conversation, first team minutes is the key. Abroad is where you're going to get your first team minutes. Now, that's just Europa League conference, 29 nations. If you go to the Europa League, it's 40-something nations that compete in the Europa League. Remember, I haven't even mentioned the Champions League. Again, in the Champions League, they got teams in there that you can't even pronounce. You don't even know who they are, but yet they're competing in some of the biggest tournaments in the world, and we're too stubborn to think about abroad. So for me, this is a real conversation that we need to have. We need to start talking to our young academy players about this. We need to start talking to those players who are getting released or who are just starting their preseason and feel like they're just on the bench and not getting minutes. We can't be stubborn in this game. We have to understand that football it's a short career, but at the same time, it's a long one. It's one that can last, and it will last if you know how to make right moves, right decisions. But you can't let your ego, you can't let your dream of getting bamboozled of the top level, you can't let that get to your head. You have to get to a point where you understand who you are as a player, understand your situation, and this whole thing is about opportunity. With all of that being said, as you can see, you do not need a top level academy to make it. Like, you don't. You don't. You just need to understand how discovery works, and you need to understand what pathways are available to you and really understand the opportunities are there. And there's a few things that I also want to add because they're really important. And one of the things that I would also say is know your situation and don't compare yourself. When you're going through this journey of figuring out your pathway, it's really easy to get into the comparison game. Oh, well, they signed for this club and that player plays for this one. And you really get into that comparison in your brain. Let me tell you something. Comparison is the biggest thief of all joy. It's going to rob you from your whole experience of what you need to do for your life, right? You need to focus on your own race and your own journey. And everyone's journey is different and no one's journey is the same. So we can't get into the comparing game as in this one, that one, this one, that one. I know loads of players that I played with. I even a specific player now is named Saleh Kaikai, plays for Cambridge at the moment. I went to school with him. And I remember out of everybody, the ones who played for academies was me, a few of my other friends, and he never. He got his opportunity at Crystal Palace late. He tried out for Crystal Palace 3 times, and he only got in on the third go. Now, he ended up playing his first team game for Crystal Palace. He ended up going and playing for other clubs, and he's currently just signed again for another extension with Cambridge United. That shows you that if he got into his head the comparison, this wouldn't have happened. So run your own race. Understand that your race is yours, that person's race is theirs. And you know what? The trick and really the magic trick of this whole thing is, bro, I'll meet you at the top. We may go different routes and we may go different ways and different journeys and different places. But brother, I'm going to meet you there. We're going to meet each other there and we're going to get there together. Right? So do not compare yourself and know your situation. It's very important to understand that. So when we're looking at that and knowing your situation, another thing I want to add is focus on now and work your way from there. Too many of us have our eyes on the future too far, right? We're looking too far ahead and we feel like we expect it or we feel like we deserve to be further than we are. But the reality is you need to look at where you are. When you look at where you are, now you can start putting together the footsteps and the pathways to go to where you need to go, right? Because let me tell you something about scouts and agents. Their whole jobs is to find you. That's their job description. That's their job role. So they will go underneath every single rock, or they will go to every single game, whether it's in non-league, whether it's in the lower league teams, whether it's abroad. They will go. And if you are good enough, they will find you. But you have to learn to work from where you are now. If you are in non-league after dropping down from a top level club, great. Work from there. If you go to a lower league club and maybe they're not playing the football you may want to play or whatever it may be, brother, doesn't matter. Work from there. If you then get your chance to go abroad, because that's the pathway you took from this video, brother, work from there. Whatever you're going to do, you have to learn to work from where you are. Because guess what? That's the only thing that's true is where you are. We can dream, that's fine. We can reminisce, okay. I advise don't do that. But the only thing we have is right now. So when you understand that you can only work from the now, it opens up a whole different mindset that every single day, this thing is built brick by brick and it starts from where? now. It don't start from the future. It don't start from ahead of you, behind you to this. It starts from now. So remember that. Take this one on your chest. I'm telling you, to really finalize and capitalize this whole conversation off, because it's something that a lot of us get bamboozled by the badge. We get confused by the badge just on our chest. It's a real thing you have to take on your chest. It's a real thing you have to understand. This game isn't played in a dream world of what you want it to be. The game is the game, and you have to respect the game. You're just a player in it. Look for the opportunities. First team minutes and opportunities. These are two things that you collaborate together, right? Because you could be at a club right now, and you may say, "Yeah, the badge is great. I've got the Premier League badge on my chest." But do you see an opportunity like Madueke did? He didn't see an opportunity at Tottenham because he's seen the story over and over and over again. He saw how it played out over and over and over again with all the players that came before him. And there's probably loads of players that came after him. I can tell you the same experience with me. I'm one of them. There's players I played with who, for me personally, should be playing. There's players I played against that I should be that should be playing. But the problem is when you're at a club, it's too big and there's no opportunity. So seek opportunity and understand first team minutes underneath your belt. If you can collaborate all these things together and really understand to seek the pathway, seek the opportunities, seek the discovery, honestly, I think it's something that would probably enhance the player rates of players making it in this day and age, right? Really expand your mind. This game isn't as difficult as we're making it. Is it hard? Yes, of course it's hard. If it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth having. But don't give up. Go through the process. Go through the discovery process. Go through the pathways. Understand what I've just given you. And remember that as a player, your career is on you at the end of the day. It's never going to be over. One no doesn't mean that someone else is going to say no, right? One thing I learned in life, the more no's you get, the closer to the yes you are. It just means that your route and your journey may be different. So here's the reality. If you're good enough, and I'm talking about if you're good enough, if you can actually play the game, if you know that you have the talent and you know you have the ability to do what it is you need to do, you do not need a top level academy. It is just that simple.